Hi, good morning students, and welcome to Microsoft Excel. We are going to be working on the Tutorial 7 review in this video. This is your how-to walkthrough. We should be on page EX453 in your book. This is Tutorial 7, so we're doing EX453 through EX455. This is utilizing macros, a little bit of VBA, and protecting your worksheets. Alright, I've already gone online and downloaded our starting documents. It looks like we're going to be working with T-ball. So let's find our rubric and see what this is going to be worth. Okay. We got 35 points on this assignment, and you're going to be turning into Youth T-ball worksheet, receipt PDF, and Youth T-ball with macros enabled. So we're turning in 3 different things for this. Make sure you turn in the receipt PDF. So you are doing what is equivalent to printing. Alright, we can see what we're going to be working with today. We're going to be creating the workbook T-ball. We're going to redefine some terms. We're going to define some streets and sales. We're going to create some validation rules. We're going to do some protecting, no passwords. We're going to protect sheets. We're going to work with macros. And we're going to create some macro buttons, and we're going to remove the developers and install the developers tab. And then we're going to save it as T-ball with macros. Okay, this is getting into a little bit more advanced Excel. You guys are getting later into the semester, so we've only got about 4 chapters left. This is great stuff. If you're using Excel every day, this will help you speed up your workflow. And those routine tasks that you would have to sit there and click and remember and click and do an over and over and over repetition, you can now insert a button and it does it for you. The macros can be as big as you can imagine. I would suggest when you're working on this to set out and pre-plan what your macro is going to be. Because once you start recording that macro, if you make an error, you have to start over again. Now you can stop, end, and start over again pretty easily, but if you're doing 60, 70 clicks and you make an error 35 clicks in, you're going to have a bad time. Alright, let's open up T-ball and see what we got. Alright, again, always documentation. And today's date is 11/11/2014. If you are a veteran or have family members that are veterans, happy Veterans Day today. Alright, so starting on our review assignment, you did such a good job helping Sharon with her youth soccer application that she recommended you to a friend, Terry Winkle, who has a similar project within the youth sports community. Terry wants you to create a receipt system with a youth T-ball league, completing the following. Alright, so we're going to do something very similar to the tutorial. We're going to create a macro that gives us a receipt and more than likely puts us into a database. Alright, so we're going to open up the T-ball. In the documentation, we're going to enter our name and we're going to save it as Youth T-ball. As always, you know by now that I like to work on my desktop. In the receipt workshop, we're going to do the following. Okay, so we have our receipt workshop here. We're going to create defined names from the selected using the ranges A3 to B11. We're going to change the defined name from address to street underscore address. We're going to use the name box to create and define names player underscore sizes for the ranges D2 through E8. D2 through E8. And we're going to paste the list of defined names in the documentation worksheet. So we're going to create some names for here and here, and then we're going to post them around here. So let's start with number 1. We're going to create defined names from a selection using the ranges A3 through B11. So since we're working with defined names, I'm going to come over here to my Formulas tab. In the Define Names section, we have the Define Names, Name Manager, and Create from Selection, which is what we're going to be working with right now. We want A3, okay, A3 to B11. So Define Names, Workbook, We're going to create from selection. It's the left column. Hit OK. You can see in our name manager we now have registration date, player name, age group, shirt, hat, parents, address, city, state, zip, and telephone. Next, we're going to modify the street name or the address to street_address. So to do that, under name manager, we're looking for address, and we're going to edit that value, and we're going to call it street_address. And you can see it has been modified to street_. Now then we're going to use the name box and create the defined name player sizes for ranges D2 through E8. Player sizes, receipt D2 through E8. Okay. So we're going to come over here to D10 or B10 on the documentation, and we're going to type in defined names. Come over to D or B. Let's go to B, not A. Did that last time. And we're going to use underneath our formulas, using formula, paste names. And we're going to paste the list. So now we have age group, all the names, and where they're located. Our next step is to start working with the validation rules. We're going to be on step 4 now. We're going to create the validation rules shown in figure 7-44 for the ranges of B5 through B7. So age, shirt, size, we're going to create the validation rules. In B5, we want a list source for title, age group, message group, click group. In your book, I'm not going to read this. You can look at the validation rules and see what validation rules go to which one. So I'm going to start working on B5. For our validation rules, we're going to come over to our data tab. And we're going to go in the data tools group. And we're going to do a data validation button. Okay. So using our 7-44 figure, we're going to create all the rules for cell B5, the age group. So we're going to list. Okay, they're either going to be 4-year-old or 5-6. Our input message is pretty simple. Title, age group. And our error message, stop. Okay, now you should see when you click on that we have a drop down and it should have 4-year-olds or 5-6. On the B6, data validation, our settings. This is shirt size. Our sources is going to be extra small through extra large. Input message. And our error. And one last repetition with the hat size. Okay, so we have used the validation rules that's underneath the Data tab, Data Tools, and Data Validation to create the rules for 5, 6, and 7 and give ourselves a drop-down menu. In the ranges of B3 through B11, we're going to enter the next data according to this. Okay, we're on to step 6 into page EX454. We're going to enter the following formulas for the transfer area in the specific cells using the defined names. So we have this transfer area down here where we want the information from here to be copied down here, and from the transfer area we're going to have it transfer over to the registration database. Now we're using the defined name. So in A37 we want to use parent. Remember, you can use tab on that once you start typing in. B37 is telephone, tab. C37 is player name. Age group. Shirt size. And F27 equals hat size. We're going to unlock the input cells on the receipt worksheet so that the user can enter data only in the range of B3 through B11. B3 through B11. Now remember, we're going to protect this sheet so someone can't come in here and mess up our formulas. So I'm going to come over here and use the format cells. You can also go through the ribbon if you like. Under protection, we're going to unlock them. So these will be the only place that people can enter in information. Then we're going to enter the following formulas in the specific cells to add the information to the registration receipt. In cells B26, remember, when you get this to this point, instead of hitting enter or continuing to type, just hit your tab button. It'll fill it in, then you can hit enter. Let's see, where am I at? I'm on telephone. Okay, so that was steps 6, 7, and 8 very quickly. Remember, the reason we created those names is so that we can quickly input them into different sections without having to type and reference different places. So now in cell E33, we're going to enter a formula for an if function. So let's find E33. At the total, in E33, we're going to enter a formula if function. If a player is in the 4-year-old age group, the fee will be the value in cell E11. Otherwise, it will be the value in E12. So we're doing it if. If it's this, then give me this. If it's that, then give me that. So still in the same data tab, we're going to come to our data tools and do a what if analysis. I apologize, that's a little bit more advanced function. We're going to come over to the Formulas tab and do an if function. So under Formulas tab, in the logical, in the functions library group, click the logical. Functions library, we want a logical, and we want an if function. Alright, so our logical test for this, if they are 5 to 6 years old, or let's see, what do they say? And so we're going to do our logical test of if, and so we want the logical test if his age group is equal to a 4-year-old's, then we want it to be 70. If not, we want it to be 80. So if his age group equals 4, then 70. If not, if it's false, then 80. Okay. The next thing I want to do is going to protect the documentation and registration data worksheets. Documentation. Protect sheet. Protect sheet. So if you try to click and enter something anywhere, you now will see an error message on these two tabs. So you cannot modify these at this point. Now the receipt worksheet is still unprotected. We would want to add the developers tab at this point. Now you can see I already have the developers tab up here, but if you do not, come over here to File, go to Options, Customize Ribbon, and on the right hand side, customizing the ribbon, you'd want to click on the developers check mark. We're going to save the workbook at this point. And we're on to step 12. Now, if you make an error in your macros during this point, the reason we have saved beforehand is so you can stop the macro, close and reopen the workbook, and start the macro over. So make sure that you've planned out your macro well so that you're not doing this repeatedly with bad steps. Alright, let's do the fun process of creating this macro. So we've saved the workbook. Okay, and we're going to create the macro. We're going to name it PDF TBR receipt. So underneath developer, we're going to record a macro. This macro is going to be called PDF underscore TBR receipt. Our shortcut key is going to be Control R. We're going to store the macro in this workbook, and we're going to A17 to F34 as a PDF file. Okay, so basically we're going to create this area down here and print it off, just like you did in the tutorial. Now be careful once you hit OK on this, because every click you make will be recorded in this macro. So if you make any errors, it's going to screw up your macro at the end. I may make one intentionally, just to show you guys how to fix it and move forward. So let's record. Now that I'm recording, anything I click, either my keyboard or my mouse, will be recorded in this macro. So we're going to make the receipt the active worksheet. I'm choosing A1. We're going to select the range of A17 through F34, A17 through F34, and set the range to print. That's under page area, print area, set print area. We're going to open up the page dialog box and type T-ball registration receipt in the center custom header. Header, custom header, center, T-ball registration receipt. Hit OK. Hit OK. Now we're going to export this to a PDF XPS. So File, Export, Create PDF, and rename it as Receipt. Save it to whatever location you are saving it. I'm working on my desktop. Publish. Yeah, I already had a receipt there from the tutorial that I worked on. You can see that receipt is opened. Close that out. We're going to clear the print area. And one thing they didn't tell you here is I'm going to quickly remove the header so that I don't create a new header every time. Click on B3 as our active area that we want to end with. Come over here to registration data. Unprotect sheet. Developer, stop recording. Okay. So you can see now in our macros we have PDF receipt. We can test this out by hitting run. It created me a new PDF. Close that out. And I should have ended on active sheet of registration B3. Now, I made an error. I made that error intentionally where I came over here and clicked on registration and unprotected the sheet from step 14. I should have stopped at the end of step 13 on H. So when I run this macro, which is Control R, you can see my active sheet has become registration data and I'm in the wrong place. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come back and I'm going to protect my sheet. Don't need a password. Come over to my receipt. Go to my developers tab, macros, and I'm going to go ahead and just delete this macro and I'm going to start it again. So I'm going to start on A1. I'm going to record my macros. I'm going to name it the same thing. Hit OK, and now we're recording. So we're on receipts. Come down here. We're going to select A17 to F34. Set the print area. Open up the dialog box. Custom header footer. T-ball registration receipt. Hit OK. File, Export, Create PDF. I'm going to save it as receipt, and because both the tutorial and the review use receipt, I'm going to save it receipt. What is this, T-ball? But that's just me. Don't feel like you have to. Hit publish. It pops up. Close it out. Then we're going to clear the print area and remove the header and footer. And we're going to end by making B3 the active cell. So now when I do this, if I run my macro, it should create my file, and I'll end on B3. Alright, on step 14, we come over here to registration data. We're going to unprotect this sheet. And our next step is to create a macro to transfer the data from the receipt to the registration data. Alright, so let's do a Developers tab. We're going to record a macro. This one's going to be named Transfer Data. Remember, with most of Excel, you can't do spaces. Control T, you're going to save it in this workbook, and we're going to give it a description. Okay. Our first step is to make the receipt worksheet the active worksheet. We're going to select the transfer area and copy it to the clipboard. Go into the registration data. We're going to click on cell A1 and then use the control down arrow keys to get to the last active cell. On the Developers tab, we're going to use the relative reference. And then move the mouse down one arrow. Then we're going to turn off the relative reference, and we're going to paste everything in. Now make sure when you paste, you're pasting just the values and not everything else. So come down here to paste, and it's clipboard with 1, 2, 3. We're going to click on cell A1 after that. We're going to come back over here to our review, and we're going to protect this sheet. Hit OK. We're going to go over to a receipt workbook and make cell B3 the active cell. And developer stop recording. Now, looking at this, the book made a stupid error of me following along here. The first step of the macro should have been turning off the protection and then ending with turning it back on. So when I run this macro, I'm going to get a runtime error. So my cell is on a protected sheet. So I'm going to go back through this, and I'm going to do it with the first step being unprotect the sheet, run through the process, and then re-protect the sheet. I'm not going to record, or I guess I'll record it for you guys to see as well. And so I'm going to come up here to my macros, and I'm going to just go ahead and delete the transfer data. I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to reset this. And then starting on my registration in A1, Developers tab, record my macro. The cell or this sheet should be protected. Okay, so we're starting off with a protected sheet. Cell A1, developer, record macro. We're going to name it we're going to Okay, so first step for me on this is actually going to come over here to review, unprotect sheet, go to receipt, and then transfer area and copy to the clipboard. Select my transfer area, copy to my clipboard, come to registration data, cell A1 selected. I'm going to do control down. I'm going to come over to developers, use relative reference, move my arrow down one more, turn off relative reference, home tab, paste my values, click on cell A1, protect my sheet, go over to receipt, and we want to end on cell B3. And finish off our recording. Now what that should have done is unprotect and reprotect the sheet so we can run effectively. Alright, so I've typed in some random stuff to see if changing the name and everything will work. So you can see Jim Bob Rhubarb, address, my name is the student. I'm going to hit Control T. We come over to registration data, Jim Bob Rhubarb, telephone name and everything. Alright, so the macro is working. We're going to create a macro named clear input with Control I as the shortcut key, and it'll store the macro in the current workbook. So we want something that erases all the information that some student has put in here. So we're going to come up here, starting on B3 is where we ended off the last one. We're going to name a new macro, and this is going to be called clear input. It's going to be Control I. If your macro is not working, delete it and start over again. It's easy to make a quick, easy, or simple, or stupid mistake. Just delete it, start over again. And you can see we're working with range B3 through B11 on this one. Alright, so I started recording my macro. I don't really want to click on anything until I am ready and read through the instructions. So in the receipt worksheet, we're going to select the ranges of B3 through B11, and then delete the data from those cells. I'm just going to do right-click, delete. Actually, I'm going to do delete button instead of right-click delete, because when we use right-click delete, it actually deletes the cells, not the content. We're going to. Oh, I lost my place here. We're going to make B3 the active cell, and we're going to end the macro. It's developer, stop recording. Alright, so let's enter in some registration dates and stuff. So 12/5/2004. We're going to do player name is Owen Phillips. Do age group of whatever group I want to choose here. Shirt size, medium, hat size. Now realize I'm doing this just to test my macros. My parent is, my address is 1234 Bubblegum Way. Okay, I should see it transfer down. My total cost is $80. So let's try some of our macros. Let's do the Control R first. Alright, create a receipt for me nicely. My Control T transferred me to my receipts, and Control I delete everything out. So we're doing pretty well. Next, we're going to create our macro buttons. And you know you want to put the buttons here between 13, 14, 15, right here. And we're going to be creating about 3 different buttons. A print PDF receipt, a transfer data button, and a clear input button. Alright, so let's go up to the Developers tab. We're going to go Insert, and we're just going to click a button. We're going to put it right here, and we'll try first the print PDF receipt. Okay. This button needs to have its name changed. Print PDF receipt. And let's expand this button out so you can see everything. Remember when you're trying to place something nice and clean, to use your control button. I don't know why it gave me 2 of these. There we go. Alright, the next one we're going to do is insert another button, and we're going to do this one as the transfer data button. Expanding it out so it's about equal and moving it into place. And final button, clear input. Alright, let's go ahead and protect this worksheet. And actually, it's unprotected because I want to reformat these cells a little bit to make them a little nicer. Okay, they're about equal now. And now let's protect the worksheet. And then I want you to remove the Developers tab from the ribbon. Remember that's File, Options, Customize Ribbon. Remove the Developers tab here. Hit OK, it's gone. If you try to insert anything onto any other part of this cell, you're going to get a review or refusal. Same thing with the other ones. So now we have a nice protected worksheet. We have our names, we have the macros, everything's working. We're going to test the macro button and then save it, and then you're done. So let's just go ahead and save this with macros installed. File, Save As, go to Desktop, and this is going to be an Excel macro enabled workbook. Alright guys, that is the end of this assignment. Remember, if your macro makes any errors, scrap it and start over again. If you have any questions, email, call, or discussion board.